Hello, CSL fans. My name is Drew, or aka Marionett, and I am here for the Week 8 weekly recaps for the CSL. This was a week of this was the final week of the divisional matches. All other divisional matches will be rematches after this point, but this was the point when everyone in their division has faced everyone else in their division. So it was certainly an interesting week. Today's guest is...
Me! What's cracking?
Yeah, there's no...
Why is my picture here? Where'd you get this picture?
Google Images, actually.
Wow, that's really creepy.
Yeah. I just searched Krakenation, and that was the first.
Really?
We know who you are, so...
Fair enough.
Alright. So, we're just gonna get into our first match, which is the Magcargo Tel Aviv versus the Texas Tauros. Evil players deciding not to save the replay, so they sent us 60 plus turns of text. So
yeah,
really appreciate that.
I was not finna read that as close as I watched these other replays.
Essentially, the essence of it is that the Tauros got consistently worn out by a combination of a rest-talking Scrafty and a calm-minding Clefable. And obviously Mandibuzz being annoying and just stalling it out. Tauros really couldn't put a lot of dents in the Magcargo Tel Aviv's team, and Alpha was able to just whittle them down.
Yeah, and that really shows, just if you look at every Mon's differential, no Mon stand out. Scrafty has 2 kills, 0 deaths, but that just means it did a little bit, more. No Mon really up and away took the game. It was kind of just the game extended for a long time, and the Magcargo have just looking at the roster, they have much more recovery built into their lineup, and so obviously they were able to heal up and whittle them down more effectively.
Alright. So, the next match
Wasn't much for that last one. Wasn't much to say.
Yeah, there's not really much to say, so we're just going to move on. The next match is the Detroit Pyroar taking on the Zion Zards. It was a 3-0 victory for the Detroit Pyroar. Both teams brought some very interesting sets. What were your thoughts on this match?
I think that, honestly, the battle was just dominated by the Pyroar. I wouldn't say it was an easy victory, but it was definitely a solid one. I think not only were the Zion Zards outplayed during the game itself, they were also outplayed in prep right off the bat. I think as far as seeing some stuff Slurpuff, bringing a Slurpuff to a game where Doublade, which is effectively a hard counter, and also Mons like Mega Venusaur, which is also pretty much a hard counter, or maybe just a counter check. I don't know. There's a lot of Pokemon here that Slurpuff really can't run through, and we did see that they tried to get creative and run a Calm Mind set rather than their normal Belly Drum set. Unfortunately, Calm Mind, I don't know what coverage moves they opted to use, but clearly it wasn't very good because they had to settle for clicking Dazzling Gleam on a Mega Venusaur.
Yeah.
And that obviously that was not a good level of prep, I suppose. So not only were they beat in prep, it's tough to look at turn 1. I think already right off of turn 1, the Pyro had a huge advantage where they essentially used Explosion Licky Licky to trade Licky Licky for Victini. And that's just set the Zards at a huge disadvantage because Victini was the one Mon that I see that could really run through this team. And it set them at a huge disadvantage from turn 1, and it was really great playing by the Pyroar because essentially trading your PU Mon for their OU Mon, and that's honestly a trade that you want to take 100% of the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of other notable things on the Pyroar side was that a free shock Huron Black, which was just creative as... it may not have been the best option, but it was very creative, and as you can see by the 3-0 score, it put in a lot of work. She brought the physical Venusaur once again, which was certainly interesting. I think it put in just a right amount of power against Pokemon like Slurpuff and Dragalge. As well as the Spiritomb, which was banded and was doing massive damage with Sucker Punch onto all of the Zion Zards team.
Yeah, I agree with the Huron Black. It was able to pretty much just not only clean up the game, but wall break the things that needed to or stall them out. With being a defensive variant with Sub and Roost, it was able to effectively just like heal up, avoid status, all that good stuff. But you also see the Pyroar also making like very effective switches throughout the match. None come to mind right now. I didn't write any down, but I did take a note that they were just making consistently really good switches. And the Zards weren't able to gain any offensive traction, even with their more offensively oriented mons.
Right. All right. So the next match we have lined up is the Houston Haunters with their new coach Blakey Boy 1998 defeating Realize and the San Diego Wild Chargers, putting Realize on a 3-loss streak. There was just in the way I saw it was a very strong opportunity for Realize to bring it back, and just bad EVing and just misplays all around just kind of lost him the game. He kind of shot himself in the foot in the match, and even though he was able to take down the Mega Altaria, which had put in so many dents in his team, the Raikou was just able to clean him up with a coverage move for every mon he had left.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like we know specifically that the Jirachi was originally meant to be a Spadef Jirachi, and then he decided at the last minute to become a Choice Scarf Jirachi while forgetting to change his EVs. And that's just, while that is unfortunate, it is like something that players need to be more careful of. And I think if we talk about like notable misplays that could be just places for improvement in the future, I think the biggest misplay that came to mind was just literally sacking off Mega Sableye, who was a mon that could have actually really stopped almost all the offensive pressure that the Hunters would have been able to exert. And he rather chose to leave Mega Sableye in on a Altaria. Be it that the Altaria was burned, however, it was a +1 Altaria, and obviously Mega Sableye, that's the one Pokemon on this team that could have taken Mega Sableye down effectively, and rather than opt to switch in Jirachi, he decided to leave in Sableye and take that hit. And while I understand that he was nervous about Jirachi being EV'd incorrectly, there's just no reason to have sacked off Sableye as the answer, like as the ultimate decision there, because it was a much more important Pokemon than Jirachi was going to be.
Right. In terms of other Pokemon, I guess a notable thing is Realize making a really good prediction with Electros, being able to Giga Drain the Rhydon on the switch-in. That was definitely a questionable switch by Blakey.
I mean, I think he did actually have some good plays. I think what I wrote down in my notes is that like he had some good plays, such as the Rhydon predicting the Rhydon switch-in, but I think that at critical moments in the match where he could have, like at these very key moments, such as the Altaria setup is on the field, what is he going to do? Like that's like a very big turning point in a match. He just kind of really like dropped the ball there, and like he wasn't able to make up for his other plays. It was just these key critical turning points, and though that's where he ended up falling short.
All right. Yeah, and I guess the other thing to point out is sacking off Gastrodon. I think that was also a huge misplay by Realize.
I completely agree. Yeah,
it was like Gastrodon walled a lot of things on the Haunter's team, including Rhydon, Clawitzer, Milotic, really. Raikou if it didn't have HP Grass. Like there were so many things that Gastrodon really could have taken on that he just kind of sacked.
He showed a Rindo Berry on Gastrodon, which was neat, but it was still not the correct play. Like when he saw how little Ice Beam was doing to Virizion being a very specially defensive Pokemon, he decided to continue leaving it in. And I think like it was a very easy chance to either switch in, like for example, Gligar or Jirachi and wall this thing, but instead he opted to just leave Gastrodon in and sack it. And sacking Mon is something you have to be very careful around, and I think we saw the Wild Chargers need some improvement in that department, at least in this game.
All right. So the next match we have is Dan of the Syracuse Sylveons taking on Majestic Swablu and her Southeast Swablu. It was a 3-0 victory for Dan. Really strange sets from Swablu's side. I don't know if it's just a sign of her giving up after going 0-7 or if she was actually trying to do something. In the beginning of the match, straight away, there was a Mew setting up Bulk Ups and Amnesia to Baton Pass an Audino. But to me, this really just showed how horrible of a pick Mega Audino was, as it couldn't even break a sub at +2 from Gourgeist. And speaking of Gourgeist was able to put in so much bulk and so much defensive presence against Swablu's team to the point where really nothing could take it on except for knockoff Thundurus.
Yeah, pretty much all the points that you said. are basically what I wrote down. I have a couple others that I'll talk about, but I think Swablu, it was a cool idea for the Audino set. Audino is a very bulky Pokemon. However, I think this was just a prime example of Swablu drafted Audino kind of as a joke and also kind of to get that extra bonus pick, but this is a prime example of like taking the running joke too far, because Mega Audino really demonstrated that like while it was a cool set, it proved itself very useless in this battle, and I think that just like Swablu needs to be more wary that while she should she kind of gave up. It seemed like even during the draft is honestly like what this like appears. Even if she intended well with Audino, it's like it kind of was just a bad pick right at the start, getting the season right off the bad foot. Because while she does get an extra Diggersby, and Diggersby is a great Pokemon, it's not worth losing your Mega slot to such a ineffective Pokemon. Ultimately, as far as the game went, I think what was really interesting playing by the Syracuse Sylveons was that Dan was basically able to maintain pressure with even his slower Pokemon, which is something that I've talked about in the past, is that Syracuse Sylveons' big weakness / strength is that when they have momentum, the game is over, and the second they lose it, they just fall off. That's why they struggled against some teams in the past. But we saw that even Pokemon like Celebi, Mega Blastoise, and Gorgeous, the slower Pokemon on this team, were able to keep that pressure up. And I think that's where Swablu really fell short ultimately. Because when Dan even was able to use a slower Pokemon effectively, we saw a late game, Sneasel and Fernape and Greninja kind of come out and just steamroll through this team one by one.
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, on a positive note, for Swablu, I think Swablu's using Thundurus Incarnate pretty well, but that's about it.
One
Physical
Pokemon can't
Thundurus
make
was
a
actually
team.
something that Dan didn't prepare for, which was...
Yeah, no, you're right.
Which reduced the differential quite a bit, but I think...
I don't think Swablu is a bad player. I think she needs to take everything a little more seriously.
Correct.
Because when she's done, I feel like we've seen her do all right. Even in her losses, we've seen her come in strong. And I feel like at a certain point, she just gives up on herself and doesn't take herself seriously.
Yeah, once she loses momentum once, she can't gain it back again.
So, yeah, exactly. So I feel like the big point for Swablu is just having a little bit more confidence in herself, and then but not doing that both in the team building, the draft, and also in play. There's just a lot of places all around where she's showing promise and not executing on it. Yeah, that's my opinion.
All right. Yeah. Also, just cool thing to point out is that for the first time in CSL history, every single Pokemon on Dan's team got 1 kill, which I guess shows his skill is using all his mons to their full extent.
Something like that, I guess.
I mean,
I didn't know that.
I think it's impressive. I think it's cool.
I think what's been really interesting about the Syracuse Sylveons over the course of the season is I think Sneasel's been very effective, and I've been pretty excited about that. Sneasel's been really just putting in a lot of work consistently. It's at a great speed tier. He's been using it pretty well. I know there were a couple unfortunate Icicle Crash. There was an unfortunate Icicle Crash miss on Tangrowth that probably ended up being the reason Sneasel died earlier on. He died early on in the late game, is what I want to say. And there was an unfortunate miss there, but I don't think it ultimately mattered in the match too much.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
we want to move on?
The next match we have is Classy Zork and the Saugatuck Sandslashes taking on the BC Bastiodons and the BC Lions King. This was a 2-0 victory for Classy and the Saugatuck Sandslashes. I guess I'll just start it.
Go ahead.
I think that the Sandslashes had momentum in the match right away, leading with Manectric getting huge damage on Aggron. I'd also like to point out that Manectric didn't Mega Evolve until it was able to get the Lightning Rod boost from Jolteon, which I thought was very good. Very good planning on Classy's part, and very good. He wanted to get the momentum, but he wanted to keep that Lightning Rod ability around. And when it did come around, it was able to take out both the Jolteon and do, I think, about 3/4 to the Latias. So it was able. So Classy had momentum right off the bat.
It did 60% to Latias.
60? Okay.
Yeah. So a good chunk of damage to especially defending Pokemon.
It was able to do tremendous damage to the Bastiodons, to the point where next Classy could have sent in his Bouffalant, which was so bulky but still so offensively powerful that it was able to take out the Aggron and the Entei, both of them. And Classy just really had momentum, but the Bastions were able to, in the end, bring the differential very low by using his Tangela's Regenerator ability to its full extent and recovering with Latias, but Class C was able to toxic both of them, and Crocodile was able to come in with a late game sweep, quick Moxie sweep, which I think was, once again, just really good on Class C in terms of looking ahead, a few turns ahead. I think throughout this match, Class C just was able to see a few turns ahead of the Bastiodons, which is what really led him to his victory.
I think ultimately we have to acknowledge, though, that like there was a lot of hacks this match for this Sandslashes side. There was, I think, a Sacred Fire that didn't burn. There was a Will-O-Wisp miss. There was one or two Leech Seed misses. And while I'm not sure if ultimately it mattered that much, it didn't. In the end game, it appeared like the hacks might have mattered, and we followed up with some calculations, and it showed that the late game hacks didn't end up mattering all too much. But I think there were a couple instances, like early game, where Entei missed a Will-O-Wisp on something. I'm forgetting what. I think it was Buffalon. But a Will-O-Wisp missed, and Entei ended up falling.
Here's the thing, though. If Latias hadn't critted both Megamanectric and Buffalon getting the kills, then both the Pokemon would have still survived.
Hacks wasn't totally one-sided early to mid game. I agree.
I think,
but like in late game, we ended up getting hacks a little bit more, and that's what we're saying. Ultimately, it didn't seem like it ended up mattering too much.
Yeah, it didn't feel like mattering too much for me because Latias was able to crit both the Metric and Buffalon, and if they hadn't critted it, then Latias would have been dead anyway, and this whole
but there was also an air slash flinch
thing wouldn't have happened. The air slash, yeah, there was also an air slash miss as well, but
it was a flinch. It was a flinch, not a miss. A flinch.
Ultimately, I don't think the air slash miss mattered as much.
Not a miss, a flinch. A flinch.
Oh, the flinch.
That's what I'm saying. It flinched Machamp.
Yeah.
So like I'm saying, like hacks was not totally one-sided either way. It was kind of even earlier in the match. And towards the late game, there ended up being a lot for the Sandslashes, and it didn't end up mattering, I don't think. But my point is that it was a pretty hacksy game nonetheless.
Yeah, I can agree. I mean, it was very hacksy, but Classy was able to play to his full extent, and the Bastiodons was able to just kind of try and save it in the end.
Yeah,
though
I would
it didn't
agree with
work,
that.
the differential was much lower, and we kind of saw the Bastiodon's ability as a player as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, so the next match is kind of your pride and glory.
It's
your first. I want to point out this is your first time getting above a 4-0 in CSL history.
I don't go for differential. For people who don't know, I never look for the differential in my matches. I just look for the safest win.
Think it's a fun thing to point out.
But actually, I want to hear your thoughts on this first before I add in what my own personal ones.
Yeah. So, looking at both teams, I was really happy you brought Substrika. I'm glad you're not being mean to the zebra anymore. But
I'm glad it didn't die. It's all I'm glad about.
I think the Mamoswines right off the bat just didn't have anything to answer to like a Garchomp or a Rhianoclus. It could be argued that a crit on Rotom with the Rhianoclus kind of made it easier for Rhianoclus to sweep, but I still think that Anthony wouldn't have had enough momentum to turn it around, even if the Rotom wasn't dead. Just honestly, it was kind of just annihilation. I think the Mamoswines just didn't bring the right team to prepare for what you had in store, and Rhianoclus was just too much of a threat for Anthony to handle. I just really can't say anything beyond that because, I mean, if you look at his team, I think everything was weak to Rhianoclus with the exception of Rotom, which had already died.
Mega Diancie wasn't weak to me at all?
Mega Diancie wasn't weak, but Mega Diancie, couldn't kill you at the same time.
Couldn't kill me. And same thing with Gallade. Gallade couldn't kill me, but it wasn't weak to me either. It just, I could out pressure it.
Yeah, I think, though, that when you have your rematch at the end of the season, that he's definitely going to prepare a million times more for just Rhianoclus.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm expecting too.
All right.
If you want me to jump in now.
What were your plans going into the match?
So
with the exception of Rhianoclus setting up and
sweeping.
If
I can just summate what kind of my mentality was about this match, not even about Antoine and I, but about just team matchup. This seems like one of the team's most defensive teams versus what I think is probably the hardest hitting team in the league. As far as like the difference being like, I wouldn't say I'm the most hyper offensive team in the league, but I would say I'm the hardest hitting when I like attack. Just because like there's really offensive teams such as Classy Zorak or Dan, but I think I have a lot more hard hitters. Well, they have a lot more like cleaners, like quick sweeper type things.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, I thought that was an interesting point to bring up. It's like this kind of like bulk versus offense was what it seemed like to me, and I was gonna make a point of just bringing out like all the offensive stops that I could just to overwhelm this guy. So the other thing I want to acknowledge about Antoine, and if you haven't watched my video, or if you have, you see me say it, is that I taught Antoine a lot about competitive Pokemon myself. So everything that he kind of thinks of is something that I kind of instilled in his head at one point or another. So I know what he knows, essentially. I know what he knows and what he doesn't know. And I think beyond just team matchup, which I feel like I had a decent amount of, I think I can game Antoine very well. He has a really hard time playing against me because I just know what he's thinking at all the times. Like I predicted his tricks, I predicted his statuses all very easily, and so like while I think he made some pretty awesome plays that might serve him well in other matches, against me he's already at a disadvantage because I know all his plays. Like I made his playbook for him. I introduced him to competitive Pokemon. Every time he like uses a Pokemon or thinks a Pokemon is good, it's because of last week I told him it was good. And I love the kid, but I think he's gonna have a very hard time just in matching up against me, regardless of what our team is or ever in general, because I know his playbook better than he does. So I really love Antoine, and I think that there was like the Psyshock crit on Rotom, which was like kind of opened up an easier door for Reuniclus to sweep, but it wasn't like I didn't have an answer to it because I wasn't expecting Psyshock to kill Rotom anyways. My plan was to bring in Zebstrika on the trick and just let him trick me the Choice Scarf and then go off from there. So like I wasn't ever really nervous about the Rotom's tricking Reuniclus the Scarf. It just probably would have cost me maybe another point of differential. But I think it was a good battle, and it was pretty hyped up. I want to emphasize that Antoine is like really still learning, and he's had a lot of potential, I think. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to come back strong towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Next up is my probably favorite match of the week, which is the Calgary Hydro Cannons versus the NJ Flabebe. It was also my kind of favorite match of the week because at the same time I had both teams kind of telling me their plays, so I think I have a bit more extensive knowledge base in this match. This one I was just very I was there for it, and it was just, I don't know, it was a lot more interesting for me. But the NJ Flabebe off the bat was horrified of Blissey.
And it didn't even end up coming? That's funny.
Yeah. Bringing a Thunderous Therian mixed with Superpower and Expert Belt. Trying to get coverage, hit everything, but it really couldn't. He over-prepped for Blissey and it didn't even come. And he brought Poison Jab on Roserade to try to 2-hit KO the Blissey. He over-prepped for it, and when Ob didn't bring it, he had lost momentum before he even turned 1.
Yeah.
And throughout the match, it was Golbat really stalling out Pokemon like Thundurus and Bronzong. And once the Golbat was down, there was just so much, with Super Fang and Toxic, there was just so much of the Flabebe's team whittled down that Obda just kind of had to Volt Switch a bit with Magnezone and just put a lot of offensive pressure with Nidoking and such, as well as Sylveon, to the point where even if the Flabebe dealt massive damage like they did endgame, the Hydro Cannons were able to fire back even harder and just kind of secure the victory.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your points. I want to add that, I think the New Jersey Flabebe actually had the game very, very, not in the bag, but they were playing very effectively, and they were I think playing better towards the very beginning of the game than Abda, just because they were really effectively pivoting, pulling out some of the shenanigans that we've seen often with Classy Zorak, just as far as switching in, switching out, Volt switching and you turning around, and it was very tough for Abda to deal with that. But I think essentially What's up?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it was definitely hard for Abda to deal with all the Volt switching. And
at the beginning of the game, I think it was. I think the second that but I think the second that the Flabebe finally made the misplay as far as when to switch out was the second that the game turned around. Because what you really notice is that there's a firm lack of switch-ins to the Sylveon on the Bronzong team, on the Flabebe team. Bronzong being the only one who he let get whittled down, and after that, Sylveon put so much pressure on this team.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, with Golbat being able to Super Fang the Bronzong until the point where the Sylveon killed it anyway, so nothing switched in.
Exactly, and I also think that there was a lot of. I understand his logic behind it, but I think if he had thought it through a little better, it would have been more apparent to him. Leaving Landorus T in on Golbat and just clicking knockoff over and over again was a pretty big misplay in my opinion. As I understand that he was kind of expecting a switch on some random turn. But you also have to realize that probably in the Hydro Cannon's perspective, there's no turn that's going to be ideal to switch out, because the only Pokemon that would have wanted to switch in and lose their item is Mega Pokemon. And Slowbro being weak to knockoff, even if it's not a even if it has the bulk to take it, it's not really the ideal switch into Landorus T clicking knockoff. So I think it should have been obvious to Flabebe that probably the better play, which they ended up doing eventually, was to switch into Thundurus or something that could handle it better. But unfortunately, they did that too late, and at that point, Landorus T was already critically weakened down. Golbat had all of its health back and was ready to go off, or at least the majority of its health back. So I think they kind of realized what they were doing, what the situation was, a little too late, I think. So that was kind of unfortunate. But I think Abda's defense was essentially just able, especially Golbat, like you said, was just able to weather the storm until it was the right time to strike. And by the end of the game, when everything got so whittled down, Nidoking was just able to come in and just clean up with Sucker Punch. I think that's what it was using.
All right, that's fair enough. The next match, and I think it's the last match, the last match is the Washington Weaviles 4-0ing the Florida Feraligatrs in a match where just Heliolisk and Ambipom
dominated. Ambipom went off.
He had no switch-ins. I really just can't evaluate this match other than that. The fact that Heliolisk, he couldn't. His only answer to Heliolisk was Latios, and once Latios was gone because of a Assault Vest Slowking and him not switching out on Ice Beams and whatever, essentially the Gators just sacked Latios off early game, and after that was done, Ambipom and Heliolisk could just clean up and kill.
I thought the Assault Vest Slowking was very cool, because the Latios not only was Latios a very powerful Pokemon, it had T-Bolt for Slowking, but Slowking was just eating that T-Bolt up. And that's something that I actually know as far as team building. The Weaviles brought a Spadef invested Assault Vest Slowking, and so that Slowking was able to really stomach those hits, and it came in really handy where Slowking was able to reduce the Latios to just rubble, and then Heliolisk, you're right, was able to just pivot around almost just willy-nilly as much as it wanted, outspeeding every other Pokemon on this team. And also Ambipom, every time Ambipom came in, I think it just got a kill. And that's something that no team wants to have to deal with. So Dubstep was able, I think Cries outplayed him in the first couple turns, but Dubstep was able to, I think the Latios was the big misplay, or the big point of that needed from work that the match, as you stated. Ambipom just kind of came in and just wrecked face every time it came in.
Bandit Ambipom was just
it was scary, strong. And it has good coverage. It revealed a gunk shot, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the Weaviles have in store, because I think they're a team that is starting to. It's kind of what I feel like right now. Dubstep is kind of what we all wish Swablu was doing as well, which is a team that has struggled in the past, finally realizing hey, if I actually try, there's potential and I can do it. And so I think right now he's kind of it's they're two sides of this coin right now, where Swablu is kind of giving up on herself, and Dubstep's kind of finding his mojo a little bit. So I'm excited to see what not only does the rest of the season hold in store for the Washington Weaviles, but what the future seasons hold in store for the Washington Weaviles.
All right. The next thing we have is the Pokemon of the Week, which is Reuniclus.
Yeah, buddy! Jelly the Reuniclus.
We covered a bit of it. I don't think there's much else to say. I don't think it was doing so well until this week. But
I think it was 1-2. I think it was 1-2 this week, up until this week, and then it got 6 kills, which is the second Pokemon on my team to go 6-0. Have any other Pokemon in the league gone 6-0 yet in a single battle?
Yeah, I mean, Reuniclus is just power.
Yeah,
You brought like coverage for everything. That
I only
Anthony
needed
had.
I only needed 2 coverage moves, and I already hit his entire team as hard as I needed to. And the other thing about Anthony's team that Reuniclus was able to capitalize on so well was that, first of all, Anthony completely forgot that Magic Guard was a thing. But Antoine relies so much on passive forms of damage, and I knew I was going to be able to exploit that and just bring some Magic Guard Pokemon. It's also why I brought Substitute on Garchomp, because I'm just going to like bring in, he's going to bring in, try to go for Toxic to weaken my Garchomp. I'm just going to Substitute, and then it's over. So it's like it's kind of able to take advantage of this matchup.
You had tried setting up once, and then fearing the trick, you just kept switching out. But like once, like the only thing that posed a threat to it was Trick Rotom.
Yeah, exactly. So I just needed to get that out of the way. And
get that out of the road, and then.
And honestly,
you get that out of the road with Reuniclus too.
Yeah, it was kind of like I just needed one weakness in his armor to like set up a sweeper in, and the second that happened, the game was like already over. I brought all of my offense basically, so like the second he like opened up for a weakness, I was like able to go off. So it didn't have to be Reuniclus, it ended up being Reuniclus. Anyways, let's continue. This is going for a while already. Oh jeez.
Yeah, so the next thing we have are the I guess I do this every 2 weeks, it's the power rankings. So I just guess up the line, we have the Southeast Swablu at 16, Florida Feraligatrs at 15, Memphis Mamoswines at 14, and Zion Zards at 13. All these teams are at the bottom of their respective conferences. I just think that Kryze has been kind of just bringing stranger sets and not really thinking out his plays in terms of just his team. He's just been kind of lowering differential more rapidly, getting 4-0'd, and then I think he got 4-0'd this week, and he got like 3-0'd the week prior to medium level opponents. I think he just kind of has lost sort of interest in it. Swablu's trying to, but I can't put Swablu above 16th when Swablu hasn't gotten a win yet. I do think, though, that Swablu will have some opportunities down the line to get a win. She's facing BC, who she should have beaten week 2 if it wasn't for a crit next week, and she is also facing Gerrymander, who I think she has a good shot against. So I think she has a good chance to get a win, but I can't put her above 16 for now. For 9 through 12. At 12, I had the BC Bastiodons, who are 3rd in their division, and they were playing well early season, but they've recently just lost a lot of momentum. They're on a 3 or 4 game loss streak, and they haven't been able to really use their Pokemon in terms of like just clashing. They were able to bring it back in the game against Classy with like the core between Latias and Tangela, but that was really the first time I'd seen him do that all season. So if he can do it more, then I think he'll rise in the rankings a bit. Both Dub and Easy Bake Oven are 10 and 11.
Wait. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Never mind, nothing.
Both Dub and Easy Bake are 10 and 11. They are in the middle of their Crystal Conference, but they've been able to rack up their wins against lower level opponents, with the exception of Easy Bake beating Classy. And then they have all their losses from stronger opponents like Izzy or Alpha or Akeem. Like they haven't been able to really get any big large wins for themselves. But seeing a 4-0 from Dub this week seems a little more promising to me. And if Obda messes up, then Dub actually might have a good chance for playoffs. So I think out of all these teams, Dub has the best chance to really bring it back. For the 5 through 8 power rankings, I actually have the NJ Flabebe at number 8. I think the Flabebe played very well in their last match, and they've been playing pretty decently throughout the season, just been getting really unlucky in terms of just sort of missing things, and kind of they usually play really well, and then it's usually one notable misplay that really messes up the game. Which shows me that 90% of the time they're playing well. So this might be debatable, but I'm putting the NJ Flabebe at number 8. Reelis is actually number 7 after being on a 3-game loss streak after going 5-0. I think that he just has a lot of momentum to pick up. He's seemed to have just gotten, I don't want to say worse and worse each week, but he's been making worse and worse plays each week, and it's obviously showing in his record and his streak. Abda and Dan both are playing very well and improving from their mistakes earlier on in the season. These are both teams that are shooting for playoffs, both teams that are very capable of making playoffs. And the thing is they lost momentum earlier on, but unlike the San Diego Wild Chargers, who are losing momentum now, they're kind of increasing, being on, I think Abda's on a 3-win streak, and Dan, 2 of his 3 losses were the first 2 weeks of the season, so both of them are really picking up momentum in the season. 1 through 4, we have a drop from Classy Zorik and Krakenation. Both Krakenation is now number 1. Also, just statistically as well, Krakenation I think is 1 differential point above.
For the first time ever, my differential is actually pretty good, guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, all these teams have been playing super well. Izzy, after having I think the strongest win streak so far, being 4 or 5. No, it's 4. A 4-game win streak. Has been able to clinch the Emerald Division for the first time this season, and I don't think it's going to go anytime soon. Alpha's just been able to assert his dominance with Clefable and other of his bulkier Stallmons, and then Classy has been able to just both Classy and Akeem have been putting offensive pressure on a lot of their opponents' teams, and I can't really say anything bad about any of these 4.
One thing I think that's really interesting about looking at these top 4 is like the different types of team archetypes. Like these are all 4 very different team structures. So I think it just goes to show that like while we all hold our own beliefs about what works best, like if you know what you're doing, you can pull off almost any strategy. Because like I think if we look at my team, we have like a lot of like it's like I would call my team like a bulky offense team where like it's a lot of like a lot of tanks, a lot of somewhat slower setup sweepers. We look at Sogdic Sandslash and it's like hyper offensive volt turning to the max, like on the steroids, and it's working very effectively for them. If we look at Magcargo Tel Aviv, they always take like a slightly more defensive approach, and kind of similar to me, but even more defensive than I would say. Like they, especially in last season, if you look at, they take a very defensive approach to their games. And I think Detroit Pyroar kind of mix it up. Like every week brings like either even you see like. Even in Pure and Black, you see both offensive and defensive variants. So I think this just goes to show that like these are all 4 very good teams, and they all have very different perspectives on how they approach their matches. So that just goes to show to everybody in like in the league that like you can kind of do whatever you want to do as long as you know what you're doing. I don't know. That's just my perspective on it.
Yeah. So next we have the top killers. We have Nidoking rising above Staraptor for the first time since week 2. And I think just Abda's recently been able to put a lot of pressure with Nidoking being able to run both special and physical. A lot of just offensive power, aside from Clefable in this list. Alpha has lost a lot of momentum in a lot of his matches, but he's always able to bring it back with a Clefable sweep at the end, which is really what's bringing Clefable's differential up. Any thoughts on these 3?
I think it's I don't think there's any really big surprises here. I think it's sad to see Staraptor fall after it like had such a dominant early season. But I think it's inevitable. I think Nidoking has been being played very well by the Calgary Hydro Cannons, and Clefable I think will always be within our, like the top 5 mons or top 10 mons. You know, like I don't think saying Clefable here is honestly any surprise. I think Nidoking it's just mostly awesome that we're seeing Nidoking be up here.
All right, yeah. So next we just have the standings. Like I said, Izzy has risen above Reelis, and Dub has risen above Easy Bake Oven. Everything else seems to be the same in terms of fights for playoffs. We're seeing Reelis versus Dan as well as Dub versus Abda. Other than that, the top of each division seems to have gotten pretty secure in terms of wins. both the Mamoswines and the Southeast Swablu are officially out of playoffs.
Are they?
At this point in the season.
What if I lose every game?
No, mathematically, they just can't.
Okay.
It's impossible. But that's about it.
That's pretty unfortunate. I think there's a lot of work to be done for some of these lower teams. I think like a lot of these lower teams have a lot of potential. Just haven't been executing on it right, because we've seen them all play better than this before. I think like Swablu was really kind of like on the rise until like this season. I feel like we thought she was like really improving. I don't know what really happened to her momentum. So I think we're gonna see, hopefully, if she can bring it back together for towards the end of the season or towards next season.
Yeah, I agree. So next up we have predictions.
Oh my god, this is a long recording. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, let's try to make these predictions.
Yeah,
really
snappy.
quick.
Go.
Flabebe versus Mamoswines. I picked the Flabebe. The Flabebe have been making good plays, just like with one notable misplay. And when there's a misplay, I haven't seen Anthony be able to really hone in on that. So honestly, I just think the Flabebe will win just on offensive pressure. Oh, also for these, these are all rematches of the week 2, and the team on the left is the team that defeated the team on the right. So that's just for prior notice.
Okay, well, personally, my vote is for the Mamoswines, actually.
Really?
I think we need to see Antoine really up his game level, but I think if he can... It's sad that you say he's out of playoffs now, but I think if he can get his act together enough, he's actually got a good chance, because he got a very strong defensive core. But I think this is actually maybe the first time or the first matchup. I don't know why he didn't manage it last season, but I think this is a matchup where that Firewater Grass core actually is very hard for the Flabebe to beat. Obviously, with good prep, they can get around it, but I think like a good usage of that Firewater Grass, or even like the other defensive cores we've seen emerge on that team. I don't want to reveal too much, obviously, but I think there's a lot of defensive cores that like I just don't think the Flabebes can break through if Antoine plays them right. So it's going to come down, I think, a lot more to like I think Antoine can have this on matchup. It's going to come down to if he can use that team that he put together so meticulously correctly this time.
Fair enough. Next, we have the BC Bastiodons versus the Southeast Swablu. A lot of people argued that the Bastiodons win last time came down to a crit, but at the same time, the Bastiodons would have swept with Gyarados if BC had known that Dragon Tail was a minus priority move, so...
Which he now knows.
He now knows that, so I'm going for the Bastiodons again. Just hyper offensive pressure destroys Swablu. Yeah, and I don't think Swablu has any momentum currently to beat the Bastiodons.
Yeah, I completely agree on it. I support the Bastiodons. I think they not only have more skill, but like the threats on the Bastiodons team just absolutely body Swablu one-on-one matchup wise. I don't want to, obviously, again, we hate, I don't want to give away too many things that we don't want to give away too many things that we see when we just analyze the matchups, but there are a lot of threats that if BC plays his cards right, just like every Mon on Swablu's team is perfectly answered by at least one Mon on BC's team. And those Mons have a lot of overlap. So, like, BC has a very good team if he wants to compose it right.
All right, next we have the Texas Tauros versus the Florida Feraligatrs. This match is somewhat of a rematch because previously it was Blazin versus Easy Bake, and this is now going to be Cries versus Easy Bake. How do you think this match is going to go?
I actually want to cast my vote for the Tauros this time around. I think they're displaying a lot, because I think it's really worth noting that these are rematches of the second week of the CSL, correct? Like you said? I think the Tauros have really, like, while the differential might not show it super well, I just remember in the first couple weeks, like, myself, like, kind of just walking through the Tauros, and I think they've actually gotten a much better understanding of their team since then. I've actually done a lot of work with them as far as team building and stuff as well, so I think, like, while I think it's not definitely going to be an easy match, I think not going to be an easy match, as I say. I think Tauros has both better knowledge of their own team and possesses some answers. I also think that Cries, kind of touching on what you were saying earlier, it's kind of a wild card. Not literally a wild card, but like it's kind of hard to get a read on his skill level because he always brings such crazy threats, and it's always like these games either go wildly in his favor or wildly out of his favor. So I think like I don't really know how to judge his skill level. So it's hard to get a read on like how he's gonna match up against any one player, because before you know it, he's gonna bring something crazy and it's gonna work perfectly, or he's gonna bring a bunch of crazy things and they're gonna all fall flat. Yeah,
I also agree with Tauros. Basically, for every reason you said. even when the Tauros was playing Blazin in week 2, it was a really close loss that really a very strange choke at the end caused the Tauros to lose. Just in terms of like cores, I think there, as we saw in week 2, the Hippowdon Registeel defensive core was able to really just obliterate the Feraligatrs. So I think that just as evidence from that in week 2, I think Easyvake will have a lot of stronger defensive presence that Cries will not be able to walk through.
Yeah, I agree.
Next match, probably the most interesting matchup, is the Swablu Sandslashes versus the Syracuse Sylveons. How do you think it's gonna go?
So, I think I was expecting Dan to win this last time they matched up, and I'm still gonna have to cast my vote for Dan. And I think Saugatuck Sandslash won last time, but there were a lot of hacks on both sides. But I think the Saugatuck Sandslash did honestly overwhelm Syracuse Sylveons. And played better than Syracuse Sylveons last time. But I think this is the kind of example of what we usually expect in a rematch, which is the team that lost the last time being able to come up big on the rematch. And that's because I think the Syracuse Sylveons and the Saugatuck Sandslashes actually have a very even matchup as far as like both skill level and team building and like drafts as far as just matchup goes. But where I think is what's going to come in handy is that the Syracuse Sylveons, we saw them do terribly at the beginning of the season. Fact. We also have seen them come back huge since then. Fact. And what that means to me is that they've gotten a better grasp of what their team is capable of. Well, I think we've seen Classy just playing amazingly well, but the same consistently throughout the season. And so I think what's going to matter is that Dan's able to now more effectively use Mons in better ways that he wasn't previously able to. So I think I'm ultimately going to have to give it to him.
All right. I think
what do you think?
I think the Sandslashes are going to win.
We have some disagreements here. Look at this.
I'm going to disagree with you here. I think the match will be a lot closer. The match will be a lot better, but the Sandslashes in terms of team matchup and just I feel like the Sandslashes just have so many things that the Sylveons can't deal with. I mean, Classy already has seen the things that Dan, as far as I've seen it, has only like one counter to, like, for example, Classy's Volt Switch.
Don't reveal
core.
Too much though.
I'm not revealing anything. I'm just trying to reveal like what happened in week 2 was that Classy saw that Dan's only answer that he brought for his Volt Switching core was Lantern. So now I feel like Classy is going to prepare a lot more for Lantern. Maybe he won't, but that's what was evident in week 2.
I think that's a fair approach to it. Like, Dan's gimmicks were kind of like put in the spotlight once, and now they won't be able to be pulled again.
Right. But I just think in terms, like, the Sandslash is demolished during the first time, and like, it's easy to say like the Sylveons can learn from their mistakes, but they were Crocodile and Manectric didn't even come out in week 2, so Dan doesn't even know what those two Pokemon were.
True fact.
I think I don't think he has enough knowledge from that match in order to learn enough from it to get a solid victory.
Yeah,
that's just the way I feel.
I agree. I understand what you're saying. I think it's gonna be an interesting match nonetheless.
Yeah. The next match we have is the Detroit Pyroar versus the Houston Haunters. I'm just gonna say the Pyroar win.
I completely agree.
Yeah, we both agree. Just mark it purple. Just go. Haunters can't touch Izzy's team. Huron Black and Venusaur monsters.
Hey, shh.
Like, that's what we saw in week 2.
Okay, fair enough.
In week 2, Huron Black got 3 kills in late game sweep. And Venusaur hard-walled everything on the Haunters team.
I agree with you. I think, I don't think everything I don't think they hard-wall as many things as it might seem, but I do think that, the Pyro's both versatility and ability to utilize that versatility in ways that we kind of never expect is going to be very useful to them. They also have, like you said, just such a dominant offensive presence on this team. And so I think ultimately that's going to be able to really put a lot of pressure on the Haunters, which we have never been able to see them handle. I know that it's a new coach than it was last time, so I think that's notable, and I think Blakey Boy might even be arguably better than Damon. I don't know one way or another. Maybe they're even. I don't really know. But I don't think it's going to be able to be a big enough difference to influence the outcome of the match.
Yeah. All right. I agree with everything you said. I don't think I have much else to add.
Yeah.
The next match is the San Diego Wild Chargers, Realies, who's been on a 3-game loss streak since going 5-0, and the Zion Zards, who are 2-6. I don't think Realies has enough determination or momentum to bring this back. I honestly think this. My gut tells me Cherrymander wins this. I don't know why, but I think Cherrymander, Realies won last time, but that was because Cherrymander just kind of brought a lot of gimmicky things, and I don't really know why he did, but he did. And one more loss for Cherrymander puts him out of the playoffs. So I think Cherry's gonna really try and bring this game back. I've been talking to him. I haven't been helping him with his team, but I saw his team, and it looks pretty strong, and just he's been prepping a lot harder for this match. So I think that Cherry's a lot more determined than Realies at this point. So I think Cherry takes it.
I agree with you, and I'll
Really?
back it up with some reasons, because you will seem like you were at a loss for words there.
Yeah.
I think the Zards. First of all, I want to totally acknowledge what you said, which is that the fact that the Wild Chargers are not only on a down streak, but down on themselves, and they've been having a win-loss streak, and it's hard to come back from that. I have a lot of experience with it myself personally, but I think beyond just the fact that the Wild Chargers are kind of down in the dumps right now, and the Zards aren't really down in the dumps at all. They've been having, a great time, which their record doesn't really show. I think the Zards, beyond that, have a good matchup, and we've basically seen what the Wild Chargers offense has to offer and what the Wild Chargers defense has to offer, I think. At this point, most teams have showcased all that they have to offer, but I don't think the Zion Zards have. I think the Zion Zards not only haven't showcased everything that they have to offer as far as their offensive threats, because they have a very offensive team, but I think they also have basically the ability to deal with all of the offensive and defensive mons, either check them or just outright KO them. I think there's an answer for every single mon if we go down the line. So I'm very excited to see what they are able to pull off, because I think it might be a battle that they can win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're surprised that I agree with you there, but I do.
Yeah, I guess we just thought alike for that one. I actually didn't think. I thought that was going to be the one we disagreed with. Wow. Anyway, the next match we have is the Magcargo Tel Aviv versus the Washington Weaviles. Alpha 6-0 dub last time. So this is an opportunity for Dub to prove himself. How do you think this match is going to go?
It is a chance for Dubstep to prove himself, and I think he has been on the rise. But I can't vote against Alpha for this battle. Alpha, first of all, 6-0'd him last time, which generally kind of means that the team didn't even really showcase everything that it has in store when 6-0s happen. And I think that means that the Tel Aviv are going to be able to use a lot of what they had last time, or a lot of the same ideas that they weren't able to showcase, which, who knows, maybe there's something even more effective. Beyond that, I think the Magcargo have also displayed just incredible amounts of skill over the course of the season. I mean, for me, myself, they're probably one of the scariest teams in the league. If not, I would say arguably the scariest team in the entire league that I wouldn't want to match up against. And, I say that with almost 100% certainty. I know there's great teams like the Pyroar, the Sandslash, but I think for me, personally, I'm always terrified of facing Alpha. I don't know if that's just PTSD because how I've matched up with him in the past, but he scares me. And so I think that he's both a great player, and he's got the matchup for this battle, and he's got the 6-0 in the past. So I don't see any stars in the Dubstep's favor, unfortunately, for this particular battle.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna say Alpha wins. Just he has a really good matchup. Dub hasn't gained 6-0. Dub just really didn't see everything the Magcargo had to offer, whereas Alpha pretty much saw every stop Dub had to pull. And I do think that I would be so devastated. I would sympathize for Dub so much if this was another 6-0, but I don't think it's going to be another 6-0. I think Dub knows what to do and what he did wrong. You know, he learns from his mistakes, but Alpha just hasn't showcased certain things that against Dub that really like will put holes in the Weaviles team. Like I think in the match in week 2, I think there were 2 Pokemon Alpha had that didn't even come out, similar to the match between Dan versus Classy. So the Weaviles just haven't seen a lot of things that the Magcargo have in store.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So finally, we have your match, the Boston Bisharps, 7-1 versus the Calgary Hydro Cannons, the 2 top of the yellow division.
Yeah.
For this match, Abda free agented or traded Ditto, which I think is really cool because it kind of forces lack of strong setup offensive presence that is supposed to deal with the stall, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, no, exactly. We've talked about this to great length before.
Yeah, like usually if you have stall, you want to bring setup like Swords Dance and Calm Mind or whatever, but with Ditto there, who can transform into that setup, it kind of forces the team to bring otherwise. So, I mean, just tell me, how are you sort of prepping? What are your sort of ideas for this match? How confident are you going in?
Obviously, I can't reveal too much.
That's fine.
But what I will say is that Ditto is a mon that I hate to play against. I hate to build against even more than just play against, because it doesn't even need to come to the battle and it already forces me to build a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, I do think that I'm able to. I think that the team I'm bringing is going to be able to shake stuff up and up. I think, like, while some of it's expected, some of it's also not. I don't know. I don't think Abd is totally prepared for what I'm bringing, and I think the team I brought is by and far the most unique team I've ever brought to. I'm planning to bring the most unique team I'm ever going to bring to a CSL battle. So I'm excited to see where it ended up landing, and so I think Abda is a great player, and he's
improved so much.
Yeah,
since
so
season
he's not a player I can take lightly. No player really is, but it's kind of the game where I personally feel that I can win this, but nothing short of my best game will win this. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like. I feel like if I don't have my absolute best game, Abda's gonna wipe the floors with me. I need to play out my best. So we're gonna see how it goes.
All right. And with that is the end of the CSL Week 8 weekly recaps. See y'all for Week 9. If you want more CSL information, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment what you think in terms of predictions, or if you disagree with us on anything, or if you want to kind of propose an argument for us to respond to, whatever. If you want to start a discussion in the comment section, just leave a comment if you disagree with anything. But with that, see y'all later.